From Houston, Texas, Shell Lubricants Headline News. Here's Myra Jolivet.
Thank you for joining us for news that is fair and balanced. The lead story, the upcoming election. The candidates are turning up the rhetoric, and that means the campaign is now reaching a fever pitch. Both sides continue to sling mud and make accusations and promote their personal agendas. The top issue in this campaign now centers firmly on pro-choice. Trucks versus cars. The controversy surrounding trucks versus cars began early in the campaign. Both candidates have firm opinions regarding the issue, and neither seems willing to acknowledge the other's stand on the subject. As a result, supporters for both candidates have organized a grassroots door-to-door campaign to help their candidates spread their messages. The campaign has become so heated that supporters have convinced both to participate in a debate. In this debate, both candidates will have the opportunity to explain their stand on the trucks versus cars issue. Here now in our studio are both candidates. On the pro-truck side, Larry Sakella. And on the pro-cars side, we have Steve Hurst. The rules of the debate are simple. Each candidate has the opportunity to respond to each question within 20 seconds before having to yield the floor. Since pro-cars candidate Steve Hurst won the coin toss, he will be the first to answer. And the first question is simply this. Why do you believe cars are superior to trucks?
Myra, 2 words. Driving. You can't take a truck into a driving bank or the drive-through window at Mickey D's. But a car can go anywhere. And another thing, cars can drive in the left lane of the freeway. Get that in a big break, and you'll get a ticket.
Your time is up. So now we go to Larry Sakella, the pro-truck candidate, for his answer to the question, why do you believe trucks are superior?
Well, once again, my opponent has sunk down to the depths of negative campaigning with that crack about trucks being restricted from the left lane on freeways. Once again, he fails to acknowledge the fact that trucks are kept to the right to avoid accidents caused by careless car drivers racing down the freeway.
You need to address the question before you run out of time.
Okay, there are several reasons why trucks are superior, not the least of which is the fact that trucks are big enough to have their own zip codes, and they cast such big shadows that they actually contribute to global cooling. And trucks are safer because their drivers are professionals, trained professionals.
Trained professionals? That's ridiculous. Have you ever heard of a car jackknifing across the roadway?
Have you ever seen a kid get a car to blow its horn?
Well, it doesn't take all afternoon to fill up a car, and you don't have to mortgage your house to pay for the fuel.
Well, trucks contribute to the national economy by transporting goods from point A to point B. They pay road use tax.
Cars go faster than trucks. That's what counts.
Gentlemen, we're getting a little out of hand here.
What does that crack mean? Trucks obey the speed limits. What are you implying here?
I think you know.
Well, maybe we need to take this to the streets.
If you think you're tough enough.
Well, I have 18 wheels. I'll show you who's tough enough.
Gentlemen, we're having a debate. Let's stop acting like children.
I've got 500 horsepower underneath that hood.
You will be on the horizon before you...
You'll eat my dust, Steve.
No way.
Well, as you can see, the debate rages on. That's all we have time for now. Until next time, I'm Myra Jolivet.
Get the Porsche 911 out there.
Knock it off.
This has been Shell Lubricants Headline News. And now stay tuned for the Shell Lubricants Quarterly Town Hall. Please welcome Doug Boyle.
Good morning, everybody. Now that was fun. I especially like the red and the blue backgrounds on that. It's sort of a preamble to our upcoming debates. Now, personally, I think that both cars and trucks are fun and cool. And I think industrial plants and fast lubes are cool and fun. We want to service as many of those in all 4 of those categories as possible. But seriously, very good news is I think that the cross-line of business support has been functioning extremely well so far this year. It's actually one of the highlights, I think, of our performance. And when you start looking at consumer sales of transport and across the industry, et cetera, I think we're working together very effectively. It's one of the synergies that I think hasn't really gotten the recognition from the acquisition that it probably deserves, because I think it's really adding a lot of value to the organization. Now, I want to move into what the agenda, just introduce the agenda for the day, and we're going to start off with Mark Adamson coming up and going through the overall group results that were announced yesterday, as well as the lubricants and OP results. I will then come back up and review the HSSE results for the quarter, year to date, and provide some perspective on the financials that Mark will be taking us through. Then Larry Sakella will be coming up to go through transport, Steve Hurst for consumer, Paul Murray industry, John Craig for supply chain, Larry Birch for Fast Lubes, and then Scott McPherson will be coming up to take us through an update on Sunrise. At that point, we'll turn it over to you and address any questions that you may have. And so that's the agenda for the day. It's actually quite a bit to cover. So let me now turn it over to Mark for the financial review.
Thanks, Doug. The good news is you've only got one finance person talking at this event. The bad news is you've got me. Sorry, wrong way. Moving into the group results, net income for the quarter was up 54% compared to the same period last year. This was primarily due to higher hydrocarbon prices, better LNG volumes, and some stronger downstream earnings. There were some offsets, and that was that the group had lower hydrocarbon production, and also there were some special charges in E&P relating to some North Sea gas contracts and some write-downs with the acquisition of Enterprise Oil. On a current cost of supply basis, earnings were up 16% at $3.8 billion. ROACE was off 2%. At 15.5%, and cash from operations amounted to $4.8 billion. This cash, together with the cash from divestments, which were a result of selling some assets in Bangladesh and some power assets in the US, was used to take the group debt down by $500 million and to make some increased dividend payments to our parents. Some other group highlights. The two parent companies, Royal Dutch and Shell Transport and Trading, have announced some increased dividends to shareholders, and both companies have started or restarted a share buyback campaign amounting to $149 million. Good news in the oil products segment. On a current cost of supply basis, earnings of $1.55 billion were 59% better than this period a year ago. And that was primarily due to higher margins, better use of our refineries, and increased gasoline demand. Sorry, I keep going the wrong way. Moving on to the global results, global lubricants results. Q2 performance was below plan. We're 16% below plan globally. However, there are a number of highlights in these numbers. June has shown a marked improvement over May. Transport has delivered a strong performance at Q2 year to date and is above plan for both volume and C5 margin. And there's been a continued excellent growth in the markets of India and China. Also, we have, many of you probably don't realize this, but we have a number of joint ventures around the world, and those joint ventures in Saudi Arabia two joint ventures in Saudi Arabia have also been contributing to these results. Hopefully the right way then. Sorry. Moving into the areas of customer, people, portfolio, and costs. First of all, some external surveys. Rimula, Jiffy Lube, and Pennzoil have been recognized in external surveys as being leaders. Industry and HR have worked together in producing some focused business training which has been rolled out. Sunrise has identified significant savings, and Scott is going to talk through that a little bit later. And there's been some good work done with procurement in Shell Australia on a package distribution project. Some things that aren't going so well. We're being hurt significantly by base oil price increases and our inability to pass these effectively onto our customers. We have volume issues in our mature markets, North America and Northwest Europe. There's been a ongoing creep in our costs, and our accounts receivable, i.e. the amounts that we are due by our customers has increased as well above target. Lubricants scorecard. Well, firstly, you can see that the ROACE measures are hurting us significantly. On the competitive ranking score, that is just a placeholder because we're still awaiting some data from OP on that. But on customer, we're slightly below plan due to some work that's been done on brand preference in the marketplace. We're above plan on sustainable development due to work that's been going on in HSSE and environment. And there's been some positive results in diversity and inclusiveness and talent management, which has increased our people measure to above target. In key milestones, unit cost reduction, streamline, and synergy delivery are all on target for Q2. Some global lubricants priorities for the coming month. As I said earlier, being able to pass on pricing increases into the market is an issue, so we need to get better at that. We need to extract better value from our existing customers and look for new customers. We're going to be rolling out on the people front some business-focused training. HSSE is going to be rolling out the Hearts and Minds program. We're being encouraged to manage our personal spend, and that really is what do you spend personally every day on your one card, etc., that you can not spend to help us out, however small that might be. And we need to manage our receivables more aggressively as we go forward. And last but not least, Sunrise, and I'm going to leave that to Scott to talk about later. US results. Well, we are below plan for the quarter, and really there is nothing more to add to this apart from primarily this is due to base oil price increases. On a cumulative basis, we're $33 million behind plan year to date, and you'll see more depth to these numbers as each of the line of businesses does their individual presentation. That's all I have for the results, and I'm now going to hand over to Doug for HSSE.
Thanks, Mark. Those results that Mark just took us through, with the exception of the North America slide, are what's going to be shared really around the world in similar meetings as we cascade this through the organization. We've taken the HSSE piece of that out of that presentation, and I'm going to cover that so that we make sure that there remains an operating focus on HSSE and it doesn't become sort of a specialized or finance-owned result. Let me first go through the year-to-date results on a global level. There are really just a couple of measures that are highlighted here. I'm going to speak to a couple of other ones. On the left-hand side is TRCF, reportable case frequency. You can see that we are lower than target, which is a good thing on this measure. It's unlike earnings. We are running about 16% better than our target. On fatalities, there's really only one acceptable target, and that is 0. And unfortunately, we have one that has been reported to date. It's one in Oman, a vehicular accident that I would encourage you all to go onto the website and the HSSE site and look up, because there's a case study there. It's actually something that's relevant to everybody in this organization as we all drive. But it really is a great piece of learning in terms of, the use of cell phones during driving, the use of seat belts, et cetera, during driving, and hopefully that tragedy can be put to some good if we all learn from it. So unfortunately, we have already breached the full year goal there at this point. A couple of other important measures, lost time. We are running at a frequency of 1.4 per million man-hours, which is 25% better than our plan, and spills are running 27% better than planned globally. So with the exception of the fatality, overall the global HSSE results are pretty strong, which is the reason why that was to the right-hand side or above target on the scorecard. Looking at North America, the performance has got some real highlights to it. In fact, North America is a major reason why the global results are as strong as they are right now, although there's some areas of concern as well. The recordable injuries rate is dropped tremendously since the last year, down 41%, which is an outstanding result. And both Larry and John Craig will be speaking to that, I'm sure, some more a little bit later. On lost time injury, down in the lower left-hand corner, outstanding result, down 70% versus a year ago. We are now, I think, John, if I'm not mistaken, at 3.5 million man-hours. I think we passed that milestone just the other. 3 million man-hours in North America supply chain without lost time, which is really outstanding. In fact, the U.S. has gone from last place to first place in the global rankings from last year to this year. A real accomplishment. An area of some real concern is in collisions, where we are even to a year ago in our performance and significantly worse than our goal. Transport and industry are doing very well. They're at the goal or better. Consumer and supply chain continue to have some real issues there, which both functions are concentrating on. Environmental incidents are on goal, and that does represent a significant improvement from past year's performance. So, in general, a pretty good result on HSSE, but there's certainly room to improve, as there always is. Now, let me step back for a second here and provide you with at least my perspective on where we stand in the overall first half of the year. The financial results are quite disappointing. Just to put a sharp edge to some of the numbers that you've seen, in case it wasn't really drawn out explicitly, but just to make it very clear, of the $42 million shortfall that lubricants is at mid-year, North American business is responsible for 33 of the $42 million. So we are the lion's share of that gap, and the consumer line of business is the lion's share of the U.S. gap, which I am sure we all find very disappointing and frustrating. I certainly find it that way, particularly in light of all the hard work that everybody is putting into the business. Before we go into what the drivers are for that and what we learn from that, let me go through sort of the tail of the tape here and review the numbers very quickly. The consumer line of business, if you look at the C5 number and adjust it for the tax impact, is $38 million behind plan. That is primarily due to base oil costs, as Mark spoke to, and what I'd summarize as unrealized cost savings targets. Essentially, there were a series of cost reductions that were put into the plan. Unfortunately, they're not being realized, and there's some important learning there I'll speak to later. On a positive note, the consumer line of business is on plan or very close to plan in terms of its volume performance this year. That is a difference from the previous years, where volume had been the key issue in terms of our financial performance. Looking at industry, it's about $5 million behind year-to-date. That is volume-related. Supply chain is $10 million. That's I say OPEX here. It's really not OPEX. It's the cumulative impact of mid-month purchase price variances and inbound freight that hasn't been recovered in terms of the chargebacks to the lines of business. But that is $10 million after tax impact. Fast Lubes is $5 million below plan year-to-date, and that is due to primarily, I'd characterize it as car counts in the company-owned sites, but Larry will speak to that more. So those numbers all add up to well more than $42 million, but then there is the offset, as we said earlier, from transport is $4 million ahead on an after-tax basis, and we had a number of one-time gains with the sale of Speedco and some accounting issues or benefits in the area of depreciation. So we have a couple of important drivers there. On one positive note overall, I would want to emphasize that our full-year forecast for the U.S. is showing after-tax profit growth of 14% over last year. So while it now looks that we'll fall significantly short of our plan, we will be up 14% versus a year ago, which is a positive trend. But given all the synergies that have been taken, actions taken, et cetera, one would have expected something stronger than that. And it's important at this stage that we learn from this and that we take action so that we can improve our performance going forward. I have two major conclusions that come from this. The first is that despite that frustration and with all the work that we've got to do, we've got to realize that our first priority is on our customers and driving the long-term growth of the business. And in the short term, that means making sure that at least the transport line of business, our star at this point, makes its plan. And we should all pull together to make sure that they make it over that finish line. And we also need to make sure that all of our businesses are getting the work done that's necessary so that we can finish this year as strong as possible and start next year as positively as possible as well. Secondly, and this is really an important piece of learning based on the frustrations that we've had about these cost savings targets not being realized, my learning is putting a number in a plan doesn't mean it's going to happen. What we really need to do is make sure that the work plans are in place, that they're staffed, and that we are really making progress against the initiatives. And I think the work and the approach that we've taken to Sunrise already reflects that learning, and that we do need to really have a coordinated effort to take those costs out if we're going to realize it. So I think we've got a very structured plan to realize those, and as I discussed a few months ago when we last got together, closing that gap is really critical to our long-term competitive performance. Now, I'd like to turn to a much more positive subject at this point and speak to a new award that's been developed really across the group. At the Business Week meeting a few months ago, it became very clear that there are changes going on across the group, from E&P, G&P, oil products, chemicals, et cetera. Everybody's going through a tremendous amount of change. In fact, business today, no business is avoiding that need, but we're all going through it simultaneously, and that we need to make sure that all the businesses within the group maintain alignment and that we stay focused on reinforcing a culture that is really unique to Shell. So all of the business heads on the CMD jointly defined what they call Enterprise First Group Behaviors under the Leadership, Accountability, and Teamwork Framework. You can read this as easily as I can speak it, but you know the behaviors, the values that are embedded in leadership, accountability, and teamwork, I think, are things that we would all endorse and support. To help reinforce that, they're beginning to a new awards program to recognize individuals and teams that have done an extraordinary job in this respect. And during a recent oil products-wide teleconference, Rob Routs identified 5 recipients of the award. Actually, there were 4 individuals and 1 team. I'm very proud to see that 2 of those 5 are from the lubricants organization. And they are, starting at the top of the list, our compatriot, Larry Sakella here, who has been recognized for his promotion of teamwork behaviors within his team, within the transport organization, and across the U.S. as well. So I want to congratulate Larry. I can say that this is a very well-deserved award. It is reflective of his behaviors, but it certainly is reinforced by the very positive performance this year financially as well. Secondly, I put second on this list Craig James, who many of you may have met through. He's leading the Sunrise Initiative within lubricants, and he's doing a tremendous job there. And there were 2 other individuals recognized within the group and a team that was also a U.S. initiative in getting the Gulf Mars pipeline back on quickly without any, I guess as I understand it, any significant safety issues. So I will now turn it over to our awardee, Larry, who will take us through the transport line of business.
Thanks, Doug. It's it's a real honor when you're recognized in front of your colleagues. But I will have to say, the great transport team we have and a strong leadership is what makes the teamwork, team building real easy in my job. So, but thank you very much for the recognition. So I'm going to spend a few minutes this morning talking about the transport business. We'll look at how we've done month to month through the second quarter, cumulative. We'll talk about our challenges and our priorities moving forward. If you look at the monthly performance, you can see we came out of the blocks real strong in the first quarter. And as you can see with the line, starting in April, that was really the heart of our plan for the next 7 months. April through October is really a period where volumetrically and financially it's going to make us or break us in our plan. And we fell off a bit in April. Volumes were up, but again, the things you heard consistently this morning, our challenge keeping up with the increased cost of goods and a $600,000 Speedco, I'll call it a hickey, that we still have in our plan. I'd like to take a minute and talk about that. Interesting story. I'm talking to my boss, Louis Scafoni, and I'm bringing the issue up about Speedco because you're aware we sold the business, had a nice return on it. Bob Merrill did a great job, and we still got a strong relationship moving forward. But I have this $600,000 a month income that's still in my plan. So I'm talking to Luis about it, and he explains it this way. He said, Larry, in February I gave you a $2.8 million stretch. So you guys, F&A, and you guys, you had to work and you had to adjust your plan. Quite frankly, I want to keep you guys focused on the customer. So I think it's a good idea. We'll keep that $600,000 in for the rest of the year. It won't impact F&A, and you guys can get on with the job. And I'm sitting there thinking for a second and saying, those trucks that I think are really cool, I feel like one just flattened me. So that's $6 million in addition that's in the plan. So that's built into that stretch that you see right there. But anyhow, we had a good volumetric month in April, and it tapered off in May, as you can see in the results. And then there's a number of things that contribute to a really strong June. We had a price increase second week of June, so that helped margins the second half of the month. It also helped stimulate sales in the first half. So we were over 500,000 over volumetrically for June. And then we had a one-time benefit. We over-accrued for programs last year. So we were $3 million understated in our income last year, and we're able to take the benefit of it in June. So that'll help offset and ease the pain of the Speedco deal a little bit. So all those good things contributed to a really strong June and finishing the quarter very strong. When you look at to the right on cumulative performance, we have a plan of 139, as you can see by the red line, and right under that, the latest estimate is 135. That's C5. I can assure you, as Doug indicated, we're pushing hard, and we've got confidence that we can hit that 139. But I'd like to point out, you can see the June plan, 69.1 C5, and cumulatively we're 6.5 over through the second quarter with the 75.6. So started off strong, hit a few bumps, and finished the quarter up on a strong note. Let's talk about the highlights. Our sales volumes were on target for the quarter. We had 32.1 million gallons, and we hit it right on the money. And we have a normalized C5 of 2.6 million over plan. That's accounting for the one-time adjustment. As I talked about in the last time we met, fastest growing brand in all the OEM dealerships. And for the same reason the dealerships are important in the consumer auto side, they're just as important on the trucking side, as I expressed, because the technical requirements to work on the trucks are getting more and more complicated. So more and more of them are coming into the dealerships, and having that business is very, very critical to the future. But Freightliner, we're 32% over last year. They're part of Daimler Chrysler. And PACCAR, which owns manufactures the Kenworth Peterbilt brands, are 72% over versus last year's sales. So you can see the real momentum. In transport, we gained 554 new accounts through the first 6 months. 206 were direct. 348 were us working in concert with our distributors. Our 206 are generating if you annualized it, $13 million in revenue. And on the distributor side, $12 million in revenue. Some of the challenges is we implemented our third price increase in 14 months. Our competition didn't follow us in November of 2003, and they didn't follow us on June 10th. So we're standing alone out there. But my view is we've got to be aggressive, but we've got to be sensible and very targeted with the customer base and fight for every penny, because we would not have a chance to make that 139 at the end of the year without taking some position and some aggression relative to a price standpoint to help offset the cost of goods. So we got to manage that very delicately, the margins versus the volume. And the channel strategy implementation, that's ongoing. That'll be through February, March of next year, and we'll continue to keep you up to date on it. The real issue there, again, is moving with speed, and at the same time, it's capturing the discretionary competitive volume of our go-forward distributors that they have, and also distributors that aren't going to be in our go-forward plans, making sure that we capture and retain those key customers moving forward. That's really the balancing act relative to the channel strategy. And the cumulative impact to customers, and I'm looking at that from an external standpoint when you look at cost of goods and the external forces that are impacting our customers, but we're going through a lot of change, putting them through a lot of change. So it's the internal factors that are involved here, and we've got to balance that act very delicately. Priorities and initiatives. Achieving aggressive sales volume targets July through October. I showed you what they were, and we've got to continue to stay focused on that. Creating differentiated CVPs, and we're working real hard in talking face-to-face with key customers in each of our segments to make sure we explicitly understand their needs, and then taking that back and working hard to create differentiation on our customer value propositions moving forward. Again, successfully implementing the route to market strategy. Through mid-year, we have 57 markets that are out of 80 that are in some phase of implementation or negotiation, so we are right on target relative to channel. Our key growth areas moving forward is in the value-led fleets and off-road construction, the value-led segments, that's mid-sized, large fleets, and we're focused aggressively in growing in that area in addition to maintaining the core brand-led business that we have. And lastly, integrating and leveraging global best practices. And this is a fun area. And the thing we're working on right now is we have best practices around the globe, and we're looking to integrate our processes from prospecting to the sales process to managing the sales metrics, customer by customer, all the way through business planning. And we have programs and processes and tools all around the globe that we're working right now to integrate. And I tell you, the standardization is going to be great for the business, and it's going to get us speed and low cost to market to be able to do that by leveraging the best practices. And I think that's one of the things that the Transport Global team is really focused on, is not just talking about best practices, but taking them and institutionalizing and making them real life day to day. So that's all that I have to speak about. I'm glad to share that with you this morning, and I'm going to turn it over to my big buddy, Steve Hurst.
Good morning, everybody. He makes it tough competition, huh? My goodness. Results on plan and an award and quite nice pictures of trucks in the video. Right there. I want to start off with a slightly different topic before I go into the financial results, and that's actually to talk about HSSE. I'll come back to HSE, which Doug has introduced already, because this is a critical issue for consumer, and this is all about road accidents. We've had, in North American consumer, 9 recordable accidents this year, which against the miles we drive comes out at a rate of just under 3. Our target is 2, and obviously that's not good enough. But it's not about statistics. It's not about statistics. If we continue at this rate, somebody's going to be badly injured, somebody's going to be killed. That's what it's all about. It's about safety of third parties, it's about safety of our own staff. This is a critical issue for consumer and will continue to be, and we are working hard to improve that as we go forward. Let me go through and pick up on the actual financial results, and Doug has alluded to some of the issues we're facing in consumer throughout this year, and really the graph on the left-hand side says it all. It's very disappointing to me to see this. It's very disappointing to the team. The red line clearly is the plan that we had in place for the year, and the blue bars, as you can see, every month we're below the plan. Fundamentally, this is a cost issue, not a sales issue, and I'll talk a little bit more about the sales performance in a minute. In terms of, we assumed within the plan a number of cost decreases. They have not happened, and they will not happen. And then secondly, base oil costs have continued to increase, and plus plastic and a few other things due to the crude oil changes over the year. So fundamentally, we have a cost issue rather than a sales issue. And as you can see with the extension out of the latest estimate, we're not going to catch up to any great extent over the rest of the year. You can see that the gap between the plan and our forecast narrows. That's fundamentally due to the price increase that we're putting through basically starting next week. August and September, a significant price increase in consumer. But we are going to be close to a little over 20% short of plan at the end of the year. Extremely disappointing for me and for the team. Let me just pick up on some specific points and really talk about the sales and the marketing side. First of all, on the highlights, and really I'm talking across the year here because given some of the changes in price last year, you get distortions in volume. So looking at individual volume comparisons month by month or even quarter by quarter can be misleading. But if you look over the 6 months, we've had very strong Pennzoil sales. Passenger car motor oils are 2% up, and that really is in the category that I would declining at least 1% over that period, perhaps 2%. So we're gaining market share there. Within that, we really have a very strong performance on premium grades as well. The SUV oil is sold extremely well installed, just picking up now in national accounts, very strong. But really, Pennzoil brand is doing extremely well. Consumer products also had a good first 6 months. Always difficult to judge with consumer products. It's a very seasonal business, and it depends a little bit where the peak is and what the fall is as you go into the second half of the year. But Axios and Meadow had very good first halves. Renix Blades has been a great success and continues to grow. Steve Ryan was just telling me this morning we've finalised the deal to put Renix Blades now throughout AutoZone over the next few months, which is a big win for us, and will continue the growth of the business. And Blackmagic tools, which have been successful in Walmart, we're pushing those out into other channels. I should add within there is also, we have a little bit of help. Slick 50 was a brand which we we said we were going to sell. We decided not to sell. It wasn't in the plan, so we have got some revenue, which is adding to the consumer products result. But it's been a good 6 months in that area. Challenges, I've talked about the cost increases. I won't go through that again, but that's a continued challenge we've had. We had a really bad May in installed. And, you talk to everybody in the industry, Jiffy Lube, and talk to the independent quick lubes. Basically, people almost stopped changing oil in May, and that fundamentally appears to be linked to the gas price. If you remember back in May, the gas price basically hit $2 a gallon in many parts of the country. People just react to that. People have a certain amount of money to spend on automotive. Fuel comes first. If there's anything left, they may do something else. If there isn't, then they don't change oil is one of the consequences. Fortunately, price dropped off a little bit, but also June, we had a very strong June. June came back very strongly installed and compensated in many ways for the business. Major strategic problem we had in the business is Quaker State volumes. I think you've heard over the last 12 months the problems we've had in declining the sales. That's continued over the first 6 months, and we really are making some significant changes in the way we go forward, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. And also, I just made the comment, whilst on the supply chain, we've had problems at the end of last year, the first quarter. There's been a lot of improvement, and supply chain working very hard to solve it, but we still have some problems. And we have order fulfillment problems, which has lost us some sales over that period, particularly at Walmart. What are we working on over the next few months? First of all, successful introduction of GF4. GF4 is the new passenger car motor oil specification, which has been introduced. We are actually launching the product next week. Our product leaving the plants next week will be GF4 compliant. At the same time, we're increasing price, which covers the additional additive cost for GF4, but also some of the cost increases we've had. It's a significant increase between 30 and 40 cents a gallon across the market. This is leading to a real battle with ExxonMobil in the installed sector. ExxonMobil have not moved price yet. Fundamentally, they are chasing volume as they were doing earlier this year. They're using their base oil strength and the margin in base oil to help them do that. And we have some real battles which we're going to have to fight over the coming weeks. Quaker State, I mentioned the problems in Quaker State. Basically, we're looking at the whole price and value positioning for the conventional grade for peak performance. That is likely to change. We're running some trials in Walmart and in AutoZone at the moment. We're having success. We've got some significant growth in volume through the Walmart off the shelves there. And so you'd like to see a different approach within Quaker State on the peak product, peak conventional product, but also a new strategy around the synthetic and premium grades, which will be launched next year. Formula Shell, we've done some work on the pricing position of Formula Shell. We've restructured that. There's more work to do and see exactly how it fits in our portfolio, and that's being worked now. We've talked a lot about the bag in the box in the last few months. It is coming. It is actually coming, I can assure you. In the next, I think, October, it will be out in the marketplace. I want to throw in something called a vent diffuser air freshener. Many of you may not know what that is, but it's an air freshener product which we've been short of in our range for quite some considerable time. We've lost business because we don't have this sort of product. It basically fits on the vent of the car, and you can adjust it to get a different amount of air freshener into the space. We have a great new product which Scott and the team have worked over the coming months, and that'll be launched very soon. Big time for us now, line reviews. This is a key time for retail in terms of what happens next year, and that's really a lot of our focus. And then those are all things. The first points I talked about are really all about consumer and what we're doing. There's a lot of group initiatives we're working as well, Streamline and also Sunrise, which Scott will pick up, which are important for restructuring the business, which will help consumer perform better in the future. I guess just the last comment I would make is that, as many of you know, I'm actually returning to the UK to live and work in a couple of weeks' time. North American Consumer, it's a great business. It's a great team. I've had a great job, and I will miss it, to be honest. But I'm very confident that the direction that's been set, what we're doing now is putting in place what will be a very strong business going forward. I'm very confident about what we'll do next year. I shall watch from a distance. I can look at SalesNet. SalesNet daily, I'll be there. So, my guys here, I'll be ringing up next year. Don't worry. So I'll be tracking. But it's been great fun, and I wish everybody success in the future. Let me pass on to Paul Murray, who's going to talk about industry.
Okay, if there's one thing I'd like you to take away from what I'll talk to you about, it's a statement I made to my own team earlier on this week, and I've made it a few times, which is about results. Results speaking louder than words. And what I'll talk to you about now, the results are not great. There are a number of words, but the challenge for industry going forward is results. So if that's the one thing you take away from this, start challenging us in industry. And Doug has been kind enough to say, okay, if you want to be that big, then you can go deep at the next one of these meetings. So we'll get a chance to go deep, and maybe I'll get a little bit extra time to take you guys through the infant of the business. Internally, we call ourselves Baby Bear. Mother bear and father bear sitting in front of me, and pretty ugly they are, as we've said, but the infant can sometimes, the infant wants to get involved in that kind of fight and battle that's up there. In fact, in the words of someone down in West Hollow, any fool can lubricate a vehicle. It takes someone very intelligent to lubricate industry. Quote unquote, Dennis. All right. So, back to the serious conversation. The results that are not speaking louder than words. Take a look at March and April. Historically, this business, no business in Shell should lose money, unless it's a new business and it's planned to get itself off the table. But we lost money in those 2 months. We've tracked on through May and June. We've made a bit of money. We haven't made anything like enough money. So what you're looking at on the right-hand side of the chart, as you look at, is we call the Get Real plan. Number of plans in our business we started looking at, and plans which were TNRs, turnaround plans, etc., etc., etc. We have landed on the Get Real plan that talks about 10 million C5 by year end. But if you take a look at where we are at this moment in time and check that we're just brown about the 2 million mark because of the couple of months we've lost, we've got to do a whole year in the last 6 months. Will we do it? Well, the initiatives are there. The challenge is, can we prioritize? And frankly, the sort of work we're trying to do in Sunrise and all of the other initiatives in the United States, we need to accelerate them. We want to become almost the test case in doing things laterally, doing things differently, and doing things profitably for us and our customers. This month we've had another month. We've made money again in July. Making money in this business is important. Losing money in Shell is not something that's acceptable. But that's where we are at this moment in time. We've got the challenge in front of us. So what are we going to do to actually deliver it? Highlights, we were first out of the blocks in pricing. We had to be. We'd just lost money. We had serious conversations with all of our customers, told them we weren't in any situation of a charity, that we were looking for equitable growth relationships. We had the DAC meeting, which worked very well, Distributor Council, excuse me, try not to use too many acronyms in the industry. And we've implemented it. It's a challenge at the direct area. We're still working very hard to get the money back out of the direct area, but at the distributor area, 98% implemented. And we're seeing a 10-cent increase on the gallon as we're going forward year on year. Targeting, we now have realistic targets. It's amazing, but as I was working, I've spent probably 65% of my time out there with customers, with salespeople, with regional managers. Very few of them could talk to you about a target they felt responsible about, accountable for. Now they can. Everyone knows what they're accountable for. I know what I'm accountable for. Customer Promise knows what it's accountable for. We all know what we need to deliver. Measurement, we have a dashboard. We had a lot of confusion, a lot of interference in the first half of the year. We've now got a dashboard to run the business. Frankly, that's a table stake. Good news, customer wins. ISG, International Steel Group, Allied Oil, ConocoPhillips, ITW, Michelin, Southern Company. Not big wins in the grand scheme of things, but wins. At this minute in time, we're a team that need to prove results speak louder than words. We're also a team that needs to build our credibility. We talk a little bit in the language of household mortgages. At the moment, we haven't been paying our mortgage repayments on a monthly basis, and the bank managers are a little bit concerned in the finance area. By the time we started meeting our monthly payment mortgages so that when we want some help, the help's there. We need to do an internal decoration, or frankly, in our case, build another house beside the one that we've got. The bank manager might be willing to give us the money. Challenges. really we need to be very clear, and this is why I'd like to go deep, and Doug has allowed us to do that at the October timeframe, really to set a compelling and competitive intent. What do we want to be when we grow up? I think we all need to be a lot more clear about that. On one side, we want to be a certain volume. On the other side, we want to apply certain products. Looking at some of the numbers in comparison to the two other lines of business, we're pretty tiny. Someone used the word funny money once, and I must say it kind of resonated with me. We want to stop being funny money. We want to be a business that can realistically talk about 40, 50 million C5 per year. Now, that's a 2007 to 2008 time frame, but that's where we're at. To do that, we need to be starting to, I suppose, not conspire against ourselves to do good business, and I will compliment the supply chain on this point. We are seeing almost a week-on-week improvement in what's happening with our supply chain. So thank you to everyone involved with that, John, your team especially. What we're looking at and getting to in Q4 is on time, on target, and in full delivery at the 90% level, and we're looking at getting our hands around these freight and cost issues, which are conspiring against us to do good business. But frankly, of the three challenges, the two on the bottom half are about doing good business. The one on the top is about setting your sights, defining where you want to go, and then going after it. And as I say, we'll go through that in more detail. Performance management. I just wanted to share this with everyone. This is a document we're using internally, but we should have and have already got a working version of the statement of intent. And I've pulled in a favor with Father Bear, Mother Bear, and everyone else who will come to the meeting on the 20th of August to help us define what that will be and challenge us and really push through. But that will be cascaded to every individual. Targets we've got. Everyone knows what they've got to hit. Now they've got to hit them. Core strategies focused on business potential. What are the things we're going to do? Also, what are the things we're not going to do? Been quite a bit of industry doing as much of everything that it possibly can. It needs to stop doing some things. And if we then stand in the way of other people, then that's so be it. I'm afraid you have to have patience with us if we say we can't do something. It's because we have a higher priority somewhere in our business. Guidelines to cut complexity. We're way too complex in the way we approach it. But I'll probably highlight this one. Individually and as a team, we need to be more accountable and have greater ownership and responsibility for what we're for, and personal leadership. Two comments. That's a first statement of intent. Anybody in this room has got a thought of how that first statement could be better? Send me an email. We want to be the industry major of first choice in 4 key sectors: general engineering, power, metalworking, food and beverage. If we can do that, then we stand a chance of getting near the goals of increasing volume by 5%, getting a run rate, results speak louder than words, of $1.5 million per month, not 250,000, not minus 100,000, $1.5 million per month, and driving on time and in full delivery to 90% and costs at the 1.5 million per month as well. Final chart, where do we want to be? Strategic clarity and focus, measured at the individual level. Hydraulic launch. We are going to be aggressive on the pricing as well. We will reposition hydraulics. It's 60% of our business. We're looking to reposition it at the beginning of Q4. When you see Q4, read into that 1 October, not 31 December, where we go out and reposition 60% of our business and endeavour to put another price increase through a large chunk of that business. It will require everybody and every hand to the pump to make that happen. But that's what we want to do. The increased frequency and size and customer wins, we all run with initiative lists. That's just good business. So that's what you will be doing. Supply chain, we want to drive our competitiveness, not conspire against doing good business, but actually go to the other level, trying to think how we might do our business more uniquely in our whole industry. And finally, freight. We are not good on freight at the moment. We're overcharging ourselves. We're delivering a lot of goods we shouldn't arguably be delivering in less than full truckloads. Again, that's a Q3 imperative, those two. But I would maybe draw, if I had to highlight one thing, the hydraulic oil strategy. That will be a statement of intent as the sort of business we want to be in the future. And through doing that successfully, then hopefully results will speak louder than words. We have the right team. We're making some tough decisions on people in industry. So for anyone who's involved in those tough decisions with me, thank you for your support. And look forward to talking to you in even more detail come October. Thank you. And I'm going to introduce John.
Thanks. Good morning. Oh, I said good morning. Get some energy flowing here. How about some blood flowing? Get some energy going. What's going on in supply chain? I'm pleased to stand up in front of you today and talk about our performance in the second quarter. I think our performance in the fourth quarter last year And then even the first quarter of this year has been somewhat challenged, and it's not something that I'm really pleased about. But I tell you what I'm really pleased about is our continuing performance. I'm pleased about our trends. I'm not necessarily pleased with the numbers overall, but I'm really pleased with the trends. So it's positive that we're moving in the right direction. But one thing I'm really excited about is this first milestone. And what a lost time injury is, it's when you hurt somebody to the point that they actually can't come to work. So think about you and your daily life. If something were to happen to you and you had to stay home or you were in the hospital, you couldn't come to work to make a living for your family. I mean, so it's not only the money perspective, it's covered through workers' comp, but it's related to the pain and the suffering. But 3 million work hours is absolutely tremendous as it relates to lost time injuries. It's essentially 1,500 people working for a full year without losing one single individual, one single employee to a lost time injury. So you ought to be really pleased to be a part of an organization that has that sort of success. And it's not just luck. It's not something that comes with time. It's really a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work with our managers. It's a lot of hard work with HSSC, and it's really underpinned by care and concern of my care and concern for you and your care and concern for me. We've actually got some early wins on Sunrise. When you think about Sunrise and it's this big project and it's way out there, what's this going to mean to us? But we're actually achieving some really decent wins on Sunrise already. Through base oil renegotiations, we've actually taken millions and millions and millions of dollars out of base oil costs. We actually had a couple of issues that in the Axios business took out 50% of cost through some online bidding. I think that's really tremendous progress. And then flush reduction. When you think about changing over in a plant, you're flushing between different products. And we spend about $5 million a year plus in moving flush out and degrading it and selling it off at 40 cents a gallon. So about $100,000 a month there. That's, $1.2 million a year. And if you think about filling containers in the hundreds of millions of quarts and gallon bottles that we fill on an annual basis, if you put 1 or 2 grams extra into a bottle of Pennzoil or a couple extra grams into a bottle of Rotella, we're actually going to take out $1.2 million in just filling to where we ought to be filling those containers, which is absolutely amazing. But when you understand the critical mass that we've got in terms of volume, I think that's really great. So I'm really pleased with the early wins on Sunrise. OTIF is really good news and it's bad news. The good news is the trend has improved. We're out of the 70s, we're into the upper 80s. But if you think about it, 1 in 10 orders going to one of our customers is not complete or full. 1 in 10 orders is not complete or full. When we were back in the first quarter, it was 2 in 10 orders that were not complete or full. When you look back at the fourth quarter last year, it was 3 in 10 orders that were going to our customers that were not full. So the good news is we're improving. The bad news is still 1 in 10. I would be really pleased by the time we reach the end of the year to be in the 95% range, and I think we're going to do that. And everybody that's working hard to achieve that, I want to thank you for your success there. When you think about the numbers that Doug showed earlier about the shortfall in those plans, and if you think about the dollars that we cut or the distractions that we have to our customers, that's pretty tough. Moved our customer service center. The Shell Customer Service Center was actually in the Pennzoil building. The Pennzoil Heritage Customer Service was in Rusk. Those both have been consolidated and moved. When you think about moving 200 people and putting a phone system in that takes 80, 90,000 calls a month, that's pretty tremendous to come off without a hitch. And for those in the line of business, I mean that is a good win, and it comes with a lot of hard planning and a lot of hard work. Very disappointed on our vehicle incidents. This is the tip of the iceberg, and when you talk about fatalities from around the world, typically fatalities from around the world are in road transport. So one of the things we do in North America is we actually measure parts of that iceberg. And if you think of the iceberg, the worst thing to happen, what you see is that fatality. And then the things that underlie it are near misses, they're minor incidents. We year to date have had 8 vehicle incidents per million miles, which is absolutely unacceptable. Our target is 5. We're actually even with prior year. I'm not real pleased with our environmental performance. While in North America we're actually on track, we continue to have what I call stupid things happen to us and stupid things that we do. It's at customer locations where we actually overfill a tank because the driver just chooses not to stick a tank. We actually had a 30,000-gallon spill at Wood River, a tank overfill this week, where one of our operators lined up incorrectly and was pumping product from one tank to another. If you think about 30,000 gallons of oil contained in a concrete dike, frankly, that's a heck of a lot of oil. But it just goes to show you the sort of catastrophic event that could happen, and we're really working hard on that. We are really challenged with rising material costs. Crude oil has had significant impacts across our operation, not only in additives but also in packaging, and base oils is just a huge, huge driver there. What are we working on for the rest of the couple of months that are in front of us? Sunrise Project is our agenda, other than HSSE. We've got a tremendous focus on outbound logistics. Last year we really did slash and burn as it related to our blending and packaging and manufacturing capacity. We think about the hundreds of millions of dollars that we actually spend from the time it's manufactured to get it to our customer. That's a huge area of focus for us. Got to hit our 95+% on OTIF between now and the end of the year. It's really around process redesign, defining roles and responsibilities and that interface with the customer. We've got to sustain our safety performance and turn around our vehicle environmental incidents. We've got to drive down costs, and the lever there is really through Sunrise. And as I always say, my motto is work hard, have fun. That's the motto of supply chain. If you just come to work every day and it's just the same old drill, you got to put fun into your work and enjoy what you're doing and keep the energy flowing. So thank you. Larry Birch.
Thank you, John. I like that work hard, have fun piece. I think most of the organization have that half right, and we're going to work on improving that through the third quarter. Good morning. For those of you joining us on the webcast, I would say that you can't see it, but this is a much better room than we've had here live in Houston. You can actually see the faces of people in the back row, and we enjoy doing these presentations. In terms of Fast Lubes, you've heard it mentioned a few times throughout the presentation. This is our C5 plan to actual performance. And you can see that we're down $11 million year to date against what our plan was. And 9 of that occurs in the company store area. And we'll talk more about this as I go through the presentation. There's a couple of things need to be understood about that. Number one is that our company stores had the most aggressive plan to improve the business for 2004. And they're falling short of it. Part of that has been I think what Steve Hurst characterized as a near demand collapse in a couple of months of the year. It's cold comfort, but I think we find that when we look at the performance of some of our key competitors like Valvoline Instant Oil Change, for example, we seem to be doing better than they are, but we have to do better still to keep this an interesting business for the upcoming years. I would also tell you that when you look at the markets where we have both company stores and franchisees, the company stores are performing at least as well as the franchisees in those markets. And so part of that tells you we have an issue where are we in the right markets with our company stores, and are we operating those stores through the right channels? And that'll come into Project Sunrise that I talk about a little bit later on. But fundamentally, that's where we are versus plan. Versus last year's performance, again, you can see that we've got a little bit of a problem on SG&A, $1.2 million, and we have to deal with that. You can have a tough year because of sales and because of things that competitors do for you, but this is something we can control ourselves. We have to fix that in the next half of the year. Company stores, again, you can see that while they're 9 down versus plan, they're only 5 down versus last year. And there's some things we're working on to try to close that gap. Most recently, we've done some advertising and promotion in Houston, coupled with a very aggressive plan to update our operations here. And we're very gratified to see that that has actually moved the performance of the company stores here. And we think there's some learnings that we're going to try to build into the T&R for the next period next year. A couple of highlights. HSE, you've heard it mentioned here before, but the Fast Lubes HSE issue is notable around the world in oil products because we have a very different business model. We have a relatively large number of new employees to the system. They actually work turning wrenches, lifting things in service bays, and while our rate is higher, overall as an absolute number, I would tell you that our target this year was to come down 30%, to have a 30% improvement in both lost time injuries and recordable injuries year on year. And we're worried about that because actually what's happening is our reporting is improving. If you think about where this organization was 2 years ago, we didn't know what the number of accidents were, lost time or recordable. And what we really attempted to do is improve the level of reporting. So we actually think we're capturing more of what's happening out there. And while we're capturing more, we're saying we want to improve 30% on the reported numbers. In point of fact, on the recordable cases, we're down 38% versus a target of being down 30%. And we're down over 60% on the lost time injuries year on year. And it's just been a really spectacular job. I don't really think you can start treating customers better until you have respect for yourself and how you operate in the store. If you really want to operate great, the first thing you need to do is be able to take care of yourself. And this is the first step. On the franchise side of the business, we've had really a pretty good year considering how tough it is. Part of that has been helped by the fact that we've added 45 new service centers in North America this year. And we're probably going to add, we think we'll exceed our goal for the year and add over 40 for the remainder of this year. Nearly 100, or roughly a 5% growth in the size of the Jiffy Lube network year on year. Doug mentioned the fact that one of the successes that's perhaps unsung about the global lubricants business is the cross-line of business working relationships. We've begun a project called Project Dolphin, and actually we've had Fast Lubes people working with both the transport and the car line of business to identify markets for international growth. I think one of the interesting things about that is that the project is only going to take about 90 days to come to a conclusion. So this is something that is not going to go on in perpetuity. And actually what we're finding is there's been great engagement. We probably have identified from both the consumer and the transport line of businesses more markets where they're interested in rolling out our Fast Lubes business model internationally than we have the capability to do in the short term. So we're going to build some more international growth into the markets. The markets we're looking at first, I won't quite identify yet until they're approved in our business plan. But the markets that we're looking at actually are markets where we have both consumer and transport opportunities in the same market. So we're optimistic about that going forward. I mentioned the local test marketing results in Houston. And, of course, the challenge is that for our whole business, the car count is down 1.68%. Again, we think that's better than industry, but not at our plan level, and we have to do better on that. Priorities for the next month. Knock on wood, we think we're going to have the joint venture completed for China. We may have stores open as early as this year. We have a new training program that we've developed in concert with the franchisees. The thing that's significant about that is that both our Fast Lube staff who are on salary, working with our franchise group and our company store group, have developed a training program. We'll be rolling that out late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter. We think we have most of our problems sorted out from an IT and a communications perspective, and we'll be doing a joint venture with retail. Hello? It's coming along. We'll be doing a joint venture with retail, actually, to use the Shell credit card in the United States, both their proprietary cards and their MasterCards, and I will also mention, and their fleet card, to have a rollout in the fourth quarter. We think that's going to be something that stimulates car sales. And while we reboot, we'll simply say that we have better to do in the third and fourth quarter. We had a very difficult second quarter. We're going to try and close that plan. And the last initiative that we have to help us do that is really Project Sunrise. We've got most of the work done around the Fast Lubes Project Sunrise projects. We're going to be submitting them to the lubricants executive team probably in April with our TNR to get validation to make sure that the Sunrise projects are going forward. But we'll be executing those really as early as the fourth quarter of this year to make some progress on that front. So there you have it. Passwords, rebooting, all this stuff. And with that, Scott, would you like to step up?
No. Yeah. Unfortunately, I do. Well, good morning, everybody. I wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about Sunrise today. I think one of the most encouraging things that I've heard today is that every one of my colleagues, unplanned, when they got up here today, talked about the importance of Sunrise to their business. And what's really important about that is if it's not important to them, it's just not going to happen. Doug talked about the learnings that we have to have from having gone through a process probably in the past where we didn't achieve the results we said we were going to achieve because we didn't tie it back to the businesses. And that's one of the principles that we've got to stay focused on in Sunrise. It's going to be an extremely complex process. There are a lot of moving pieces to it. It's going to be a huge challenge for us. It's tantamount to changing the fan belt while you're running the car down the road. It's going to involve a lot of extra work by people in this room, and there's already a lot of people that are engaged in this. And one of the things I want to do is just kind of take a survey this morning and see how many people have already been engaged or involved in any one Sunrise project. Good. Now I'm looking for the candidates that can get involved in the other one. So, because it literally is going to take everybody in the organization to make this work. We got an awful lot of work to do in a short period of time. How much longer before we're ready to go? Okay. All right. Well, I'll come back to the chart so that we don't get behind schedule because I know we've got a hard stop with the next session coming up. Let me talk a little bit about, just give you, if you will, take you back to a snapshot of what Sunrise is so that we all begin with a common framework. If you remember in the last town hall session, Doug talked about Project Sunrise. What are we trying to do? A lot of people see Sunrise as only one thing. They see it as our desire to lower our costs. And that's certainly one of the things that we want to accomplish with Sunrise. But it's only one of the things. It's also about taking that step to a truly global organization. It is about standardizing and simplifying our existing processes. When you take a look at our business today, it is really the combination of a number of different companies that have come together over the last 3 to 4 years where we basically have patched that work together. We've got a lot of complexity in that business. We've got a lot of fragmented and broken processes. And what that requires us to do is to carry a lot of excess capacity. The only way we're going to get that excess capacity out of the system, whether it be people or processes or assets or whatever, is that we've got to standardize and simplify these processes. And as we do that, we want to take a move toward doing that on a global basis and not sub-optimizing that region to region. One of the things that we want to continue to emphasize, though, is Sunrise is a region-owned project. It is going to be coordinated centrally. It is going to impact every region in Global Lubricants, but it's region-driven. That also means that it's LOB and function-driven. Within each region, that's where the real work's got to take place. That's where the implementation's got to take place, and that's where the delivery of the benefits has to take place. In the U.S., the initial team identified 42 projects. That's what constitutes the body of work that we have in front of us when we talk about Sunrise. That identified $110 million worth of potential savings. And I shouldn't say potential savings. I should say savings that are being cooked into our TNR as we speak today. So it's an imperative that we deliver these. And I think you heard from each one of my colleagues today as they spoke about the importance of getting these Sunrise initiatives right and delivering on that commitment in the future. One of the other things that we identified as we went through Sunrise is that there's some projects that have a very functional bent to them, and they're more tactical, and there are things that can be done within a particular function, and there are others that are going to require fundamental process redesign. And those we've now grouped into a group called the Core Redesign Initiatives that are going to be managed as one project. They'll be managed as individual work streams, but they'll be managed as one project. The other thing that we've got to do as we execute Sunrise is we've got to stay focused on delivering on our current commitments to our customers. It's not going to do us any good to redesign an organization, to fix these processes, and to lose our employees, our suppliers, and our customers as we go through this process. So every step along the way, we have to be conscious about the choices that we make, setting clear priorities, and understanding the implications of each one of the steps that we take in this process. So just to take you back to where we were last time, these are kind of the functional initiatives that are across the organization. They do span the entire organization. As John talked about, some of these are already underway. Some are already in implementation. We're already getting some benefits out of these. We want to continue to drive these through each one of the functional groups. But these various projects are being managed by and driven by the individual functional organizations. And then we have the body of work that we call the core redesign work. This is the work that's going to require that fundamental process redesign to streamline, standardize those processes, drive the waste and redundancy out of the system that we have in there today. I know in my conversations with people as I sit in on these teams, people can tell you story after story after story about the things that they have to do to support the business today. My contention is one of the reasons we are as successful as we have been, and the reason that we have improvement over last year, is because people are working harder than ever to make the processes we have today that are in place, making those work. If people didn't have that commitment to the business, we would not be seeing the improvement that we saw over last year. So we've got to ask for your continued support in doing that, and ask for your participation in this process as we go forward. So where are we today? Well, we've kind of taken these projects and we think about them in terms of 4 phases: data gathering, option generation, option selection, and implementation. And for the quick math people in the room, you'll probably add those up and realize that's more than 42 projects. And that's because these projects are actually beginning to generate new projects, and some are being subdivided so that we can kind of take them a piece at a time. So the math doesn't add up to 42, but the number doesn't change. The bottom line is by 2006, we need to have $110 million of improvements in the business off of a base of 2003. Where are we today? June year to date, we've recorded about $632,000 worth of savings. Now, you heard John talk about, well, we've identified millions and millions of savings. That's right, we've identified those, but we don't count those savings until they ring the cash register. So the numbers won't go up here until we're actually able to see the green, and it's actually going to hit the bottom line. And we're going to maintain that discipline throughout the process to make sure that we're not reporting anticipated savings, but we're actually reporting recorded savings. Our projected 2000 benefits look like they'll be about $7.2 million for this year. Cooked into our TNR for next year is $60 million worth of improvements. $60 million worth of improvements over where we were in 2003. That's a very significant number. It's not going to happen without a lot of hard work by a lot of people. And as we saw from the hands that went up earlier, we've got a lot of people working on this as we speak. And then again, we've got to be at 206. By 2006, we've got to be at 110 million. I keep talking about the challenges in front of us, and there's really 2 major challenges that I want to share with you today, just to make sure that everybody has a clear picture of. This very simple chart that we put together really begins to tell the story of just how complex this task is going to be. This is not just about an effort in the United States. It's one that's about global, and it's about global within lubricants, and it's about global within oil products. As we went through the initial Sunrise work, we identified 40-plus projects in the U.S., over 40 projects in the East, and 35 individual projects in Europe that we have to address in order to deliver over $400 million worth of additional benefits to the global lubricants business. In each one of those, we identified a set of projects that are really focused on process redesign, and for us, that's what we're calling the core redesign work. We identified a set of functional improvement opportunities within each one of those regions, and then there were a group of these opportunities that cut across all the regions, which are identified down here on the bottom of this chart in what we call global opportunities. So those are looking at pricing on a global basis, sales force effectiveness on a global basis, customer promise on a global basis, sales and operations planning, driving out complexity, which is really about looking at our SKU rationalization, and then procurement on a global basis. So simultaneously, what we're going to be doing in each region is we're going to be working these on a regional basis, looking at these core redesign opportunities. We're going to be looking at all these functional opportunities on a regional basis, and simultaneously we're going to be looking at designing the global standards around which we want these process redesign opportunities to fit in for these 6 areas. And we've basically got to do all of that by the end of this year and have that well defined. Now, what's going to happen for the U.S. is as we manage these regional core redesign opportunities, those are 9 individual work streams that will be managed as one project. Each one will come forward with a set of recommendations between the end of August and the middle of September. Between the middle of September and the end of October, we'll bring all of those recommendations together, bring the U.S. leaders together, and we will sit down and talk about where there's conflict and synergies between each one of those 9 work streams, to come up with one consolidated set of recommendations so that we can clearly identify the cost, the benefits and the implications of moving forward with those recommendations. We then have to take those recommendations and vet those with the global design that's going to be going on simultaneously, and that work will take place in November and December, at which point in time we'll have to make some choices either about accelerating or decelerating part of our plan in order to be able to sync up with where we need to be globally by the year 2006. So a very simple task for us between now and the end of the year. We talked about this a couple of times, and I noticed it on a couple of my colleagues' charts, and it is about staying focused on the customers. And customers are one of our key stakeholders, but they're just one of our key stakeholders. We can't lose sight of the fact that as we go through this process that we're going to have impact that's going to hit our suppliers, our employees, and other internal stakeholders. You know, if this was really the first piece of change that was hitting the organization in any significant period of time, we would probably have a lot less consternation about it than we do. But what we have to what we have to continuously remind ourselves is this is really change on top of change. And I only went back to 2002. Depending on what organization you come from, you could probably talk about the change that took place in 2001 and 2000 and what you experienced during that period of time. And then you came into this PQS Shell merger, and then we had all of last year's year of transition activities with synergies and LOBP rationalization, a new system that we put in place, and a new LOB structure, new roles and responsibilities, new metrics that we had to get used to. And for some people, even new compensation and benefits, which really touches everybody across the organization. And now we're talking about a complete transformation on top of that. And these customers, these suppliers, employees have all already been touched by those changes. We've got to stay focused on fully understanding all the implications with every choice that we make. There's a couple of things I think are really going to be important in doing that. For all 42 of the projects, one of the things that we've already done is we've defined a change management program that we want to have implemented into all 42 of those projects. It means that what that really means is this has got to be a part of every project, and we have to look at this across all 42 projects and not just those 42 individually. That's going to be a challenge in itself. The other thing is going to be about timely communications, and that's always one of the toughest things to do in a project like this is what can you communicate when. Anytime you embark on a process like this, it automatically increases anxiety within the organization, within your customer base, and within your supplier base. The commitment is that we will communicate to people what the decisions are absolutely as quickly as we can. But those decisions have to be made. What's not helpful as we go through this process is for everybody to speculate on what the outcome is going to be for any particular given project. What all that does is create anxiety in the organization. It creates fear amongst our customers and fear amongst our suppliers. So what we really need to do is refrain from that. We're going to look at a lot of things. We're going to talk about a lot of options. We're going to look at a lot of different things, different ways we may want to run our business, but we may or may not choose to make those choices and implement those recommendations. So until we're able to communicate what those changes are, it's best if we just refrain from speculating on what they might be. One of the things that we want to do in these town hall meetings and other venues is kind of keep people apprised of where we are in the process. One of the things that we'll use is we'll use the website a lot to keep people up to date on where we are at the process and when we hope that we're going to be able to reach final decisions on these things. So it's going to be a challenge for us all. I would encourage anybody that has any suggestions or recommendations for how we can more effectively manage this change. I'll make the same offer that one of my colleagues made earlier. I'm in the address book. Please send me a note because this is something that we've got to get right for this to be successful. We talked about the challenge. Now we need to talk about why are we doing this? I mean, you heard it from each one of my colleagues today that it really is going to be important to us. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a better world for us all. Yes, it's going to help improve our financial performance. But as well, what it's going to give us is simple, well-defined, repeatable processes that will provide us with clear roles and responsibilities so that we can drive out the waste and redundancy that we have in the system, eliminate the rework that's going on today, and hopefully continue to satisfy and delight our customers so that we can increase that customer base. And that's the ultimate end goal here. And that, of course, on top of all that is also the move toward a new global organization. So, in summary, the U.S. projects are underway. The projects will have to be integrated on both a regional and global basis. That may have some impact on our ability to be able to move as quickly as we want to in the United States, or it may accelerate some of the things that we need to do. The payoff is significant. We've got to have it to be competitive in the U.S. We feel like we're on the right track. We're absolutely convinced that we can be successful if we all stay together on this and we stay focused on it. And on behalf of my U.S. colleagues, I just want to thank everybody for the support that you've given us to date and for your continued support in the next year. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Scott, and I want to thank all the speakers that have just come up. I hope you can see, as we go through those reviews, that we have a pretty clear handle on what's going on in the business. There are some great successes that we can point to and congratulate ourselves on, as well as a very good idea of what issues we need to deal with. And in particular, to my earlier points about the disappointments around cost savings not being realized, we have got a very clear approach to this. It was well resourced. It's being very well managed by Scott and everybody who is participating on the Sunrise teams, and we are going to get this thing straightened out. And it's not just so that we can enjoy hitting our plan, but also so that we can just have a much more competitive business going forward, one where we are able to meet our customers' orders on time and in full, and that we aren't taxing our customers for our own inefficiencies and costs and complexity. So let me open it up now for questions and answers, and I would like everybody that was presenting and other functions, HR, IT, whatever, are all here to answer whatever questions. So please fire at will. I have, oh yes, okay.
Okay, Albert, yes.
Thank you, thank you.
I guess I have this question because I was kind of surprised to hear on the transport side, when we raise prices. Good morning. I have this question because I was surprised to hear on the transport side our competition didn't follow suit while we were raising prices. So I guess my question is for Doug or Steve on the PCMO side. As we are raising prices as we speak, basically, what kind of feedback do we have from, what do we sense our competition's doing given that, and what kind of feedback are we getting from people like Walmart and Pep Boys and Jiffy Lube?
The last one may be the harder one. It's mixed, I guess, is the answer I would give. In simple terms, the premium grades, if you like Castrol, Valvoline, plus ourselves, Pennzoil, Quaker State, are all moving prices. Pretty similar sort of levels, certainly in the retail side. In the installed side, the bulk side, we're actually putting through a lower price increase into the business than some of our competitors are doing. I think the issue really comes around the gas brand, particularly ExxonMobil, who appear to have a different strategy of really chasing some volume around the installed market, and they've not put through a price increase yet. We have seen a letter they've sent to distributors, which indicates they're moving to their pack goods, but will not move their bulk.
You can go to the podium. Is that it?
If you're talking about ExxonMobil, they've not moved price in the bulk side yet. They're moving some of their viscosity grades in the pack side, which are going to GF4, but they're chasing volume. They want to grow market share, particularly in car dealerships, it looks like. That's where we're feeling a lot of pressure at the moment, both with Exxon and Mobil grades, but also with Toyota GPO, a good wrench, and also Ford Motorcraft is chasing volume. So it's a tough fight out there, and there's some sort of mixed responses. In terms of the customer response, which is the other question you asked, in the retail side, actually, it's been pretty smooth. Even with Walmart, I think everybody's been expecting a price increase because of the GF4 change. I think people recognise because of the cost of crude, our cost base has gone up, and that's gone through relatively smoothly. Walmart have fully accepted a price increase, and most of our retail customers have timing a little bit different depending on notice periods. On the installed side, a little bit mixed, as you always find there. Some are not particularly happy, particularly those who have got offers on the table from other competitors. So that's the thing we have to battle our way through. It's tough out in the installed market, though, at the moment.
Other questions? Yes.
Hang on a second. The dip in demand on the installed business, it was mentioned in May, and I think Larry mentioned in another month. Did we see similar dips in other channels? I'm just curious if on the DIY side, DIY type channels, if that was less of an impact, or if it's consistent but maybe just lesser.
No, not really. We haven't seen particularly a dip in the retail side. I mean, there is some beliefs around, which is difficult to prove, that as the gas price gets higher, some people will switch back to DIY rather than from DIFM. It was very sudden, though, at least in May. Early in the year, there were some dips in the business, as Larry referred to, but May was particularly noticeable. It just sort of almost stopped one weekend. But retail, no, we've not seen that. In retail, we'd say that Walmart continues to grow and some of the auto chains lose overall category share, but no major shift.
Other questions? I have a few. Oh, yes.
Hi. I'm often asked the difference between Shell Lubricants and the Jiffy Lube with the rapid lubes that have been coming up lately, and I struggle with an answer in terms of strategy and do we have two distinct philosophies for both?
Do you want to field that, or do you want me to? Okay. We actually have a number of different concepts that we market under, which I think is a competitive strength and advantage for us. I mean, obviously, Jiffy Lube is the premier operation within the organization as a whole. You know, it's a company-owned and franchise operation, and it's a business model that really brings in income in a number of different ways for the organization, both in terms of earnings at the store level, company-owned stores, the franchise fees that are paid, as well as I highlighted in the last meeting, it's our second largest customer in North America, so there's quite a bit of oil earnings there as well. The other concepts, there's been obviously a lot of focus on the Shell Rapid Lubes as that was integrated, or the whole system was merged 2 years ago. But there's an even larger number of Pennzoil 10-minute oil change sites out there, and both the Shell Rapid Lube and the Penn's 10 sites are similar in what I would call that they're more of a license arrangement. And in that arrangement, we essentially contract with an independent operator for purchases, and we essentially lend them or allow them to market under our brand name or use of our brand name, and they will buy exclusively or nearly exclusively all of their products from us. And so in that case, our income is really based on the oil sales. So there's a variety of different business models there, and that allows us to meet the needs of different operators. Some operators want to work within a system such as Jiffy Lube, where they get a tremendous amount of support. Others are more independent, and they like to operate on their own, and we can provide them a lot of service, and our brands offer a real competitive advantage for them as well. I think we've been able to manage the inherent conflicts that are involved in marketing under different names pretty effectively. There were a lot of questions at first around the merger, at the time of the merger, around how we were going to manage our way through that, but I think at this point everybody's pretty satisfied that we're doing this in an orderly manner and as a result not creating unnecessary conflicts. I expect us to continue to market under multiple concepts going forward. It's a real source of competitive strength, and you compare ourselves to Castrol, Valvoline even, ExxonMobil, et cetera. This is a real source of strength for us. Any other comments from Larry or Steve? Or?
No, I'll make
Please.
a short comment and say that in the Jiffy Lube model, we actually sell intellectual property. I mentioned the fact that we're going to have Shell credit cards integrated into the Jiffy Lube system. We're developing a point-of-sale system that's going to be available for Jiffy Lube franchisees, and people pay us for that. And the reason that we don't put the respective organizations together, even though they look like they're in the oil change business in the same mode, is that because we sell the intellectual property, there'd be a real risk of valuable things we provide slipping across from one brand operator to another brand operator. And So we tend to keep the Pens 10s and the Rapid Lubes, which are essentially product sales agreements, separate from the Jiffy Lube piece, where we don't sell products, we sell systems. And that makes it crystal clear that the people who are paying us for the Jiffy Lube value proposition are clearly not getting, there's no leakage possible because you have the same person calling on a Pens 10s that calls on the Jiffy Lube down the street. And so that's a nice, clean break for us, both operationally and legally, I think.
Larry, while you're up, let me ask you a question. I'm going to read from some of the questions that have come in on the Internet. From Sid Schuler in Moore, Oklahoma, he asked, what's happening with the training for the J standards? You referred to that earlier, but...
Yeah, I did. Henry Flores is working on that. We're on schedule with it. We're working with the Jiffy Lube Training Committee. We're clearing the last bits through legal right now, and after we get it through legal, we'll be actually producing the media that allows the training to go out to the stores. And so that'll be available, we think, in the fourth quarter of this year. And we'll be training our own staff and then being prepared to roll that out to the company stores and the franchisees. The important thing about this, and I think one of the interesting things we've done this year, is we don't really run the company stores separately from the franchise system. So for the first time, we're going to have the same operating system, the same brand issues, the same training program out into the field to try to get it so that consumers don't see the difference when they visit one of our franchise versus one of our company-owned sites. So it's the same training program for everyone.
Thank you, Larry. Let me read one other one that has come in from an area manager in the consumer sales organization, and I direct this one to Kelly. It's an HR question. For me, I still find it quite challenging to attain a reasonable work-life balance, although I work quite diligently towards it. More work, you can see. Is there any hope on the horizon?
Thanks, Don. I think, yeah, I think all of us share the concern that has been expressed. I know there's been lots of 6 a.m. teleconferences all this week for global meetings, and certainly going global puts a new added stress on people's time frames and workloads. It's not an easy answer. Each one of us kind of have to look and set up our priorities, work with our supervisors to figure out, okay, what are the key priorities that we have to deliver the plan this year. That's going to mean a series of trade-offs and choices. I would encourage everybody to meet with their supervisor to talk about trying to get that load so that it's manageable for you. You are the best one to know what you can handle and what you can manage. I guess when I think of the question, think about hope, I think about what Scott talked about earlier. And I think about cleaning my closets. I know I'm a simple person. And when I have to clean my closet, it's getting more compact. Everything's stacking up there. It's a big mess. I walk in every morning and I think, God, this needs to be clean. But I know that it's a huge effort to do it, and it's more mess up front than it is right now. And that's kind of where we are with Sunrise, is we need to clean our closet. We have too much complexity in our system, and it's hurting the customer, and it's hurting each one of us because it's overloading us. We're having to do workarounds, and we're having to do manual effort when it needs to be easier. And so my hope, personally, is that Sunrise is going to help us. But that's a long-term hope. That's not a today hope. It's not going to fix it tomorrow. You saw Scott's timelines, all of our timelines for Sunrise. So in the short term, I would encourage you to look at your own, try and figure out what your personal priorities are, and then talk with your manager to sort out how you can load level better and where you need to make trade-offs. So no silver bullet. Sorry.
I would just personally second everything Kelly said. I think that the demands of business life today really create an awful lot of stress in that. I think in terms of big programs, the initiatives that Scott is leading or that we're all participating in are going to help a bit, but this is very much a personal decision, and trying to legislate this sort of in a new program is not going to be effective and in conflict with some of the other things. So you need to have a very open discussion with your manager if you're feeling that stress and find the right way to get that balance done. And it's something that's dealt with, frankly, in the long run by the career choices you make, rather than something that is can be fixed, very easily or through a centralized program. Are there other questions in the room? I have a couple of other here from the that have typed in. One actually, I'm probably best one to answer, which is what are Shell Lubricants' plans for the Pennzoil, and Jiffy Lube brands? So Larry, you should speak to this one as well. Pennzoil and Jiffy Lube brands outside of the United States, and how will this affect the current brand strategies outside of the United States? I'll let Larry speak to Jiffy Lube's plans outside of the U.S., but on the Pennzoil brand, we are really focusing down on the markets where we have a strong brand position. I must say that the PQS International organization was pursuing the strategy of essentially planting the flag everywhere. And this is a brand-led business, and in order to be successful and to really build critical mass in the market, you need to first focus on developing core brands to a point where they are the clear market leaders before you should consider diversifying and complicating your portfolio by adding more brands to it. One of the worst situations you can ever find yourself in is a whole pile of subscale brands where you really don't have any control or stature in the marketplace. So in some places we are pulling back and concentrating down on one brand or two brands that really secure our position, and then building on that, putting all of our resources around that. Others, and there are a number of markets out there where we have very strong positions, primarily with the Shell Helix brand, and we are then complementing that with a Pennzoil or a Quaker State brand. In the interest of time, I won't go through the selection of the rationale of why we select one brand versus another there, but there is a consumer positioning and a market positioning logic behind that whole piece of it. So it's a very dynamic process. Right now, it's probably more consolidation than it's expansion, but we're building our position overseas, and selectively, individually, we will then launch additional brands into the marketplace. Larry, do you want to speak to the Jiffy Lube strategy outside the U.S.?
Well, actually, to be very clear, I'd speak to the Fast Lubes strategy outside the U.S. because I mentioned in the last meeting, we think trucks are cool, and we may have a different installed brand name for a Fast Lube offering on the CRT business than we have on Jiffy Lube. But the desire is to make that the same worldwide. In China, the branding will be Jiffy Lube because that's primarily a passenger car play there. And the product that's sold there will primarily be Shell product. And when you think strategically about this business, if I could be fair to Doug, to the transport people, we have a distinct advantage, but not a unique advantage in the strength of our brand names in products. I mean, Rotella is a world, and Rimula are names around the world that are almost akin to Kleenex. Shell Helix and Pennzoil and Quaker State in the United States, very strong brand names. And we also have a competitive advantage related to Fast Lubes. We have a great operating model. Shell companies all over the world have tried to develop franchise models for the last 10 years that I'm aware of, perhaps 20, and they failed at it. And so Fast Lubes has, again, a very good but not distinct competency. The thing we have together is we're the only people in the oil business that have the great product name that goes along with a successful operating model. And that's really what's attracting people to us internationally. We came late to China. We came 6 months behind China, behind Valvoline, in fact. And Valvoline have an oil change model, but who ever heard of Valvoline in China? And so they were really drawn to Fast Lubes, because of the Shell product strength there. And we think this is going to be something that's very powerful around the world. So rather than force consumers to buy into a new brand, whether it be a renamed Jiffy Lube or, say, introducing Pennzoil Quaker State in a market where you have quadruple the strength of a Shell brand there. We're going to go with the product combination that really means something in the market, and the operating model that means something to the partners we bring to the table. And that could be one of the Pennzoil Quaker State names around the world. I think in Mexico, for example, that's a market that's interesting, and we probably have in the passenger side. I know we have in the passenger side a better name than we do with the Shell name in that market. So that could be a play that we would take in that market. But the point is, we're not going to force feed customers. We're going to take the assets that we have, and we're going to leverage those assets and trademarks where we have them.
Great answer. And just to build on Larry's point on China, I mean, that is just, in the broader context of this organization, just such a bright light for us right now. And I'm sure the opening of the Jiffy Lube stores as they begin to open is going to strengthen that. But just to give you a nugget, year to date, the consumer line of business, which I'm familiar with the most, and Larry might be able to speak to transport or Paul industry, but we're up 39% versus a year ago in volumes. And we absolutely dominate the brand preference scores there. We have just a tremendous position in China. We're doing great things in terms of the selling and distribution network and everything. So we're very, very excited about the development of that market. Larry and Paul, I don't know if you want to add on that, but just
don't know the exact number, but it's robust.
Yeah, it's a strong business across all the different segments of lubricants. One question here I direct to Steve came in on the internet. It is, what is the outlook for some of the non-lubricants Shell operations? Examples, Blue Coral, Axios, Meadow.
Yeah, I talked earlier when I was talking about the performance in the first half of the year that we had a good first half. Our sales were ahead of plan, about 3% overall, and we continue to see good growth. They're great brands. Doug was talking about brands and the strength of the brand in the market. So keen in trying to manage it. Nothing worse than having a weak set of brands to try and manage a business around. And we clearly in lubricants with Pennzoil and Quaker State and Shell, Rotella, we got fantastic brands in the lubricant side. We also have great brands in the consumer product side as well, and they're generally one or two in their market sectors. So if you look at Axios, it's clearly number one. In the accessories, Meadow is clearly number one in the air fresheners. As you go down into Black Magic, a strong position in the appearance side. So they're great brands, obviously of a smaller scale. And there's some different plays around them and how you build the business. It's much more a retail play and less of an install play. But I think one of the powers we've seen out of the brand this year, which I think has surprised even us in the business, is how we've moved Rain-X into the blade business. Rain-X has got a fantastic brand built around one product, the windscreen treatment for rain. We've extended that into appearance products. That was successful. Obviously, blades was a clear direction to go. We were hopeful it would be successful, but it's really taken off. And I know in AutoZone, Steve's just done the deal with AutoZone. They're taking Bosch out of their stores. Bosch is a worldwide leading wiper blade company. We're taking them out and replacing them by Rain-X across 3,000 plus stores in the US. And also on the installed side, we're having a great deal of success, same through the distributors as well. So what's carrying it? There's nothing, to be honest, there's nothing special about the blade. It's a good quality blade, but it's nothing unique. It's not a product technology. The brand is carrying it across and being very successful. So there's a great scope for those brands. I can talk to you a little bit about also internationally. The Shell Car Care International is really working hard and finding lots of opportunity to grow those brands as well across the different world markets, particularly linked into the Shell retail shop. So great future, I think, for the brand.
To add to it that we are seeing some good results, not breakthrough yet, but I'm very patient in terms of the international car care business. It's important that we make the right decisions. We scale that business up step by step, but we are doing very well in a number of markets and seeing some good development there. So that's encouraging as well. I mean, the consumer products business, I think, plays very important strategic role to us in North America, accelerating our volume or revenue and earnings performance, as well as providing tremendous strategic advantage for us in the large retailers such as AutoZone, Walmart, etc. If you look at our business from the customer's eyes, the vast majority of the profits that they realize from our products In other words, when they see us, what they see the value in us is on that consumer product side because of the high margins and the high growth that's in those businesses. So it plays a key role. That doesn't mean that there isn't going to be change. I mean, the Sunrise Project really forces us to look at absolutely every aspect of how we operate the business. And so I'm sure there'll be changes there, as there are going to be changes in our blend plants and changes in selling organizations, changes in marketing, changes in everything are likely to occur. But that business, in terms of the brands and the face that it allows us to present to our customers, is absolutely critical to our success. Open it up. We have time for a few more questions. I can't believe that we have really answered everything. Yes.
Both companies brought a pretty rich racing heritage, and was just wondering a little bit more about the strategy with regards to racing programs.
Do you want to build that?
Getting lots of exercise today. Thanks very much. The racing heritage is of course extremely strong from the Pennzoil Quake Estate, not as strong from the Shell side, at least in North America. Of course, outside of North America, it's very different with the Ferrari contract, which of course doesn't get a great deal of play here in the US. In terms of strategy, racing is seen to have an important part of the overall direction that we're taking in consumer. I think Doug started this a couple of years ago, really trying to tailor the racing sponsorships as to where you want to play, how you want to play against the products and the size of the investment you want to put in it, against how you want to spend your money in other areas of SP&A and marketing in general. So overall, the racing budget has declined over the last few years, but I think it's got more focused in what we've done with it. Quake Estate's a good example where we've been going after the enthusiast with the Quake Estate brand, and so we've moved some of the sponsorship into more the enthusiast type racing, the drag racing, for example, NHRA, which we did last year, and then some other smaller grassroots type sports. So I think we're getting more focused. The other target we have in there is we try and link into other racing teams where it may have some feedback into from a product perspective in terms of profitability. Hendrix is a good example of that. With the Hendrix sponsorship, we also get the 60 dealership group, which offsets to a large extent the profit from that, offsets to a large extent the spend we have in the racing team. So continues to be important. I think it will continue to be focused, and each piece of the racing spend that we have will be assessed like any other investment we make in terms of the return it makes on the business. But I would see it continue to play a role as we go forward in the business.
Other questions? Now, you're going to be on the web with these questions, so it's a moment of opportunity and fame. So please help us out here with something. No? Exhausted at this point already. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. We end a couple of minutes early, but not much. Appreciate all your attention, time for it, and we'll see you in about 3 months with hopefully some very good third quarter results. Take care.